Hello and good greetings. My name is Hat, though it took me a long time to call myself that. This is pretty much what my brain is like, an explosions illustration that I created, again, years ago, about my brain is constantly exploding with ideas. Overthinking and ruminating, this is the story of my life, and anyone else who has a brain like mine is always ruminating and overthinking. This was from the Zulu beaders, the ladies who had this community in our Zulu community, especially in the rural areas. There's these craftswomen who do this incredibly intricate beadwork, the Amangwe Zulu beaders, and we worked with these people on one of my projects, and this is a little card, a greeting card. We don't need no education. I remember how when I was young, and especially when I was going through my, I'm very wholesome and well-behaved good girl years, I used to get quite offended by that song at the time. And now I just laugh because there's so much about that song that I now resonate with. We got these from such a lovely lady while we were traveling through the United States, which again is why I love art journals, because it's not just about writing. The visuals, every single visual reminds me of something. I love weird names, especially since I write screenplays and I'm often thinking of characters. Gertrude Snoll and someone called Mildred Peach. I don't know, I just thought those were funny. Ink splatters. Years ago, this was the very first time I had drawn on Procreate and made a digital illustration. And at the time, I didn't have an Apple Pencil. In fact, I didn't have an Apple Pencil for a long time. So this little drawing was drawn with my finger. This was from my book. Some people said, Heather, you must change your ways. You haven't grown out of your silly girl phase. Your clothes are not neat and your hair is a mess. There are numerous flaws that you need to address. Beware the dream pooers, people who take a dump on your big dream. You tell them, oh man, I would just so love to be able to do this. You tell them your dream and they go, well, I don't know about that. You know, it sounds very pie in the sky. Maybe you should come back down to earth. Maybe you should, just get your head out of the clouds. And that is a dream pooer. This was my dad actually had said this to me. This was at a time in our lives as a family. We were about to hit the road as a nomadic family for a while. And my dad, I still remember this, he said, go out and live your life. Don't get into a rut like I did for all these years. And he was actually so kind about it. And I really just appreciated that he encouraged us and said, go for it. I get the feeling that I'm only allowed a certain amount of honesty until people start saying enough already. Man, I've felt that way my whole life. I still feel that way depending on the people that I'm with and the people who I'm in the room with. This was a piece of letter that was sent to me from Cuba. This was the guy, our translator, who sent me a marriage proposal from Cuba because he used to call me fatty girl, this man. And so anyway, after all this time of calling me fatty girl, he then sends me a letter which proposes marriage and says that I must marry him and move to Cuba to go and live with him. And I'm like, I don't think so. But, you're going to call me fatty girl and then expect me to be like grateful for the marriage proposal. But I laugh when I think about that story now. A photograph that I took when we were in Zambia. I still really like this photograph. And I just loved the colorful clothes that all the women were wearing. And anyway, a changing habit is seldom a one-step wonder, but rather a series of repeated stumblings in which we catch ourselves progressively earlier each time. I still absolutely agree. This is funny. This is me. How old was I here? I must have been in my very early 20s. So selfies back then was photo booths in malls. My friend, the Joan, and I would often spend stupid amounts of our money, our pocket money, to take selfies in these frickin' photo booths. By the way, I still, to this day, my mother sent me to 5 different piano teachers and I still cannot read this Lots and lots of experimentation, again, with inks and how do they bleed. Birds born in a cage think that flying is an illness. Illustrations and scribblings with tiny, tiny, tiny little thin fine liners. I like this little girl, actually. I think she's super cute. These labels remind me of school and conformity. Oh, these are some pages of my book, How Heather Got Her Happiness Back. Artists are people driven by the tension between the desire to communicate and the desire to hide. There's few quotes, I guess, that sum up me better than that one. Beetle and Bear, that was once the nicknames of my children. We call them different nicknames now. Now it's Fish and Seal. But back then it was the Beetle and the Bear. I don't know what happened to the stamp. I had such a cool stamp that said total crap. And even in brown ink. I honestly don't know what happened to it. I love that stamp. Here's some more photographs of me drawing my hat illustrations in coffee shops. Yeah, these are some words of another one of my songs. There once was a girl who lived in a world of beautiful visions and schemes. She imagined the day when she'd go on her way and live out the life of her dreams. So she sat and she planned and she hoped and she prayed while the years of life slowly dragged by. And in her old age, she moped because she had existed and coped, but never had courage to fly. I think this is the final page, actually, of art book number 1. You are a victim of the rules you live by. And then some reclaiming, I guess, those school labels that I spoke about earlier. And then I love my 3 pills, my 3 favorite people. That is it. That is now my very first art journal, the first art journal that I created years and years ago. It just looks like a bunch of mess, and it is a bunch of mess. But I can't begin to tell you how much creating this over that time really, really helped me to work through some stuff and figure out a whole bunch of things about myself, and also to just learn to embrace a whole bunch of things about myself. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I will be sharing more of my many, many art journals, and you'll kind of see how they progress as time goes by. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed art journal number 1, and signing off, this is Heather, aka Hat. See you later.